All right, so you've booked that trip, to an English-speaking country.
Yeah.
And you're a little worried about the language barrier.
Of course.
Well, we are diving deep today into essential English phrases for travel to help make your experience so much smoother, more enjoyable. All those little situations that you might find yourself in where you're not sure how to say something or you're worried about,
Yeah, for sure.
misunderstandings.
Absolutely.
We're going to talk about all of that today.
Right.
We'll cover airports, hotels, restaurants, shopping, even emergency situations.
Very important.
So this will be really valuable to you.
Yes.
And we're going to give you not just, phrases, but really like
Exactly.
examples of how to use them, tips.
And how to feel comfortable using them.
Exactly.
Because that's really the key.
Yes.
Having those phrases at your fingertips can make all the difference. It's not about being fluent.
Yeah.
It's about feeling confident enough to communicate.
Exactly.
To ask for what you need to, get the information you need and really enjoy that travel experience.
Yes. So let's jump right in.
Let's do it.
Okay. You've just landed.
Right.
You're at the airport.
Yeah.
It's busy. Maybe you're a little jet lagged.
Yeah.
A little overwhelmed.
It happens.
And you need to find the check-in counter.
Okay.
So instead of wandering around,
Right.
looking lost,
Looking confused.
you can just confidently walk up and say,
Yes.
I'd like to check in for my flight to, and then your destination.
Exactly. Having that phrase ready,
Yes.
along with your boarding pass and ID,
Of course.
can really just make things so much smoother. And while you're there, if you're hoping for a specific seat, like a window seat or an aisle seat, don't hesitate to ask.
Right.
Is it possible to get a window or aisle seat?
It's like magic.
Yeah, it can work wonders.
I can't tell you how many times I've done that. Now, it doesn't always work.
Yeah.
You know,
Of course not.
airlines sometimes have their own policies.
Right, they do.
But it's always worth asking.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let's talk about baggage fees.
Oh, yes.
Because I've had that experience where I get to the counter
Right.
and I'm hit with all these fees that I didn't know about.
It's the worst.
And it's so frustrating.
Yes.
So to avoid that,
Mm-hmm.
you can proactively ask
Exactly.
before you even get to the counter, what is your policy on checked baggage?
Yes, it's so important because those baggage fees, they can really sneak up on you.
Mm-hmm.
They vary so much between airlines and countries,
Yeah.
so it's best to be prepared
Right.
to know what to expect
Exactly.
before you even approach the counter.
Okay, so we've checked in.
Yes,
We've dealt with our baggage.
we're good.
Now we are at security.
All right.
The security line can be a little bit,
Okay, it can be stressful.
stressful, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to remember, liquids, electronics, shoes, belts.
Exactly.
It's a lot.
It is.
So
Yeah,
instead of trying to remember all the rules,
Yeah.
you can just ask,
exactly. Mm-hmm.
do I need to remove my shoes?
Perfect.
Do I need to remove my belt?
Yes, just ask.
Simple questions.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so much better
Yes.
than,
Then guessing
guessing. Yeah.
and potentially getting it wrong.
Or like holding up the line.
Exactly.
Because you're not sure.
Nobody wants to be that person.
Exactly.
So just ask and they'll let you know.
And don't forget to say thank you.
Oh, yes. Always be polite.
Yes.
Little courtesy goes a long way.
It really does.
Especially in a potentially tense situation like airport security.
Yeah. Even if you're feeling stressed, just be polite.
It makes a difference.
It makes a difference for everyone.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you've made it through security.
We're doing well.
You're doing great.
Yeah.
Now you need to find your gate.
Right.
And let's say, you're in one of those massive airports
Oh, yeah.
where the gates are like miles apart.
It happens.
You have no idea where you're going.
Right.
Well, the first thing you want to do is check the airport monitors.
Absolutely. They're usually pretty strategically placed throughout the terminal.
Yeah.
So you can get a general sense of where you need to go.
Mm-hmm.
And, before you even approach airport staff for help,
Yeah.
glance at those screens.
Right.
Get an idea of your gate's general direction.
Okay.
That way you can ask a more specific question.
Yeah, because, those airport staff, they're busy.
They have so many passengers to help.
So if you can be, have a little bit of information before you even approach them,
Right.
it makes it so much easier for everyone.
It makes their job easier, and it makes your experience smoother.
So let's say you've checked the monitors.
Yeah.
You still can't find your gate.
You need a little extra help.
Now what?
Now you ask, excuse me, could you tell me how to get to gate and then your gate number?
So you've got that gate number handy.
Exactly.
And again, just being polite.
Yes. always be polite.
Using that, excuse me.
It goes a long way.
Yeah.
And be specific instead of just saying, where's my gate?
Yeah.
Give them that gate number.
That's helpful.
It helps them to help you.
Yeah. And there are often maps too.
Oh, yeah. Those airport maps can be lifesavers.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're a little confusing.
They can be.
But if you can get your hands on one, it can really help you to visualize where you need to go.
Okay. And one last tip for navigating the airport.
Right.
Many airports now have their own apps.
Yes, they do.
Download that app.
It's like having a personal airport guide in your pocket.
Yeah.
You can get maps, real-time flight updates. Yeah. You can even find restaurants and shops within the airport.
Amazing.
Super helpful.
Okay, you found your gate.
We're doing great.
You are doing great. But now you're hungry.
Of course.
You need a pre-flight snack or maybe a coffee.
All right, so we're heading to the food court.
Right.
Or one of those little airport cafes.
Yeah. And those can be a little intimidating.
They can be, especially if you're not sure how to order.
Yeah.
Or if the menus are in English.
Right.
And you're not quite sure what everything is.
Yeah, so let's say you want to get a coffee.
Okay, classic airport coffee.
Right.
So instead of just saying coffee, please.
Yeah, which could be anything.
Right, it could be anything. Yeah. Try being a little more specific.
Right.
Could I please get a large latte? Or can I have a cappuccino with an extra shot of espresso?
Ooh, I like that.
Be specific about what you want.
Yeah.
And it'll make the whole process much smoother.
And then, of course, you've got to have a pastry to go with that coffee.
Oh, of course, those airport pastries, they can be so tempting.
Yeah.
So, if you're eyeing a particular treat, don't be afraid to just point and say, could I also get that croissant, please?
Perfect.
Sometimes nonverbal communication is just as effective.
Right.
Especially in those situations where you're not quite sure how to say the word.
Okay, so we fueled up.
We're fueled up.
We've got our coffee. We've got our pastry.
We're ready to go.
We are ready for our flight.
Yes.
All right, so we've successfully navigated the airport.
We have.
Using a few key phrases.
Just a few key phrases.
But that's just the beginning.
Yes.
From here, we'll explore how to master those essential phrases.
Exactly.
For transportation, hotels, restaurants.
We got a lot to cover.
And more.
Stay tuned.
Okay, so we've conquered the airport.
Yes, we have.
Now it's time to tackle transportation.
All right.
So you've landed in a new city.
Yeah.
You're eager to explore. But first, you need to figure out how to get from point A to point B.
Absolutely.
And whether you're taking a taxi.
Yeah.
Or navigating the public transport system.
Right.
Or maybe trying out a ride-sharing service.
Yeah.
Having the right phrases can really make all the difference.
It really can. Transportation is often where communication can be the trickiest, especially in a foreign country.
Right.
But a little preparation goes a long way.
Okay, so let's start with taxis.
All right.
You've just grabbed your luggage.
Okay.
You've stepped outside the arrivals terminal.
Yeah.
And there's a line of taxis waiting.
All right.
What do you do?
So before you even approach a taxi,
right,
have your destination clearly in mind.
Right.
And if possible,
yeah,
written down or saved on your phone.
Okay, good tip.
This will just avoid any confusion or mispronunciations.
Right, especially if you're dealing with street names or landmarks that you're not familiar with.
You can't even pronounce.
Yeah.
So have it written down.
Okay, so you've got your destination.
Yeah.
You approach the taxi driver.
Okay.
What do you say?
A simple, can you take me? And then your destination, please. Works every time.
Easy.
And here's a crucial tip.
Okay.
Especially if you're unfamiliar with the city.
Yeah.
Always confirm the approximate cost before getting in.
Yes.
Because you don't want any surprises.
Oh, I've had those surprises.
Yeah, they're not fun.
Not fun at all.
So just to avoid that, you can simply ask, how much will it cost to get to? And then your destination.
Okay.
That way you know what you're getting into.
You can always, maybe negotiate a little bit or decide if you want to take a different form of transportation.
Right, or find a different taxi.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
All right, taxi situation handled.
We did it.
But now let's say you want to try the local bus or train system.
Okay.
You're feeling adventurous.
All right.
You want to experience the city like a local.
I love it.
But it can be a little daunting.
It can be.
Especially if you don't know the routes or the schedules.
Right.
So what do you do?
Well, a little pre-trip research goes a long way.
Oh, always.
Yes. So many cities now have excellent websites or apps for their public transportation systems.
So helpful.
So familiarizing yourself with the routes, the schedules, the fare options beforehand can really save you a lot of time and potential headaches.
Okay, so you've done your research.
Right.
You have a general idea of the bus or train line you need.
Yeah.
You're standing at the bus stop or the train station.
Okay.
Now what?
Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah.
Public transportation staff are usually very helpful, especially with tourists.
They're used to it.
They are.
Yeah.
So if you're unsure if you're on the right platform,
right,
or if a particular bus goes to your destination,
okay,
just ask, does this bus or train go to? And then your destination.
Simple.
Easy.
Okay, and what about ticket machines?
Oh, yeah.
Those can be intimidating.
They can be, especially if they're in a language you don't understand.
Right, and there are so many buttons and options.
So many options.
Sometimes, yeah.
But most of them have language options.
Oh, okay.
So look for a button or an icon that indicates language settings.
Okay.
And switch it to English if available.
Right.
If you're still struggling, don't hesitate to approach a staff member and say, could you help me buy a ticket to... and then your destination.
Perfect.
They'll be happy to help.
Okay, now what about transfers?
Oh, transfers.
Because those can be really confusing.
They can be.
You know, you're on one line, you have to switch to another.
Right.
You're not sure where to go.
Yeah, that's where having a map or a transportation app can be really helpful. But even with those tools, it's always a good idea to double check with staff.
Okay.
So you can say, do I need to transfer to get to and then your destination?
All right, so you've successfully navigated
We did it.
public transportation.
Yes.
You're feeling like a local.
Blending in.
You've arrived at your hotel.
Right.
Bags in tow.
Yeah.
Ready to check in.
Time to relax.
Freshen up.
Yeah.
And, you know, most hotels have staff who speak English.
They do.
But it's still helpful to have a few key phrases ready.
It can make things so much smoother, more efficient.
Yeah.
Especially, you know, when you're tired from traveling.
Right.
You just want to get to your room.
Okay, so you're at the reception desk.
Right.
What's your opening line?
I have a reservation under the name and then your name.
Classic. It works like a charm.
And of course, have your confirmation handy.
Yes, either printed or on your phone.
Yes.
Just in case there are any discrepancies.
All right, now what about special requests?
Okay.
Like if you want a room with a view.
Yes.
Or extra towels.
Absolutely.
Is it okay to ask for those things?
Of course, hotels are all about hospitality. They want to make their guests feel comfortable.
Right.
So don't hesitate to politely make your requests.
You could say, if possible, could I have a room with a view?
Okay.
Or would it be possible to get some extra towels?
I love those phrases.
Yeah. If
possible.
So polite.
Would it be possible?
It just shows respect.
Yes.
You know, and it goes a long way.
It really does.
In any cross-cultural interaction.
All right. So you've checked in.
We're in.
You're settled in your room.
Yeah.
Now it's time to explore the city's culinary scene.
Right.
Food is such a big part of the travel experience.
It is.
You know, it's a chance to savor new flavors, immerse yourself in the local culture.
Absolutely.
But ordering food in another language can be a little intimidating.
It can be.
So let's break it down.
All right, let's do it.
You found a charming little restaurant.
Okay.
You're seated at a table. The waiter approaches with the menu.
All right.
And you're ready to order.
Yeah.
But the menu's in English.
Okay.
And some of the dishes sound...
You have no idea what they are.
A little unfamiliar.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Don't panic.
Okay.
Waiters are there to help you navigate the menu. So if you're unsure about a particular dish, just ask, could you please tell me more about this dish?
Okay.
They'll be happy to explain it to you.
And what about dietary restrictions?
Oh, yes.
Because, you know...
Very important.
A lot of people have dietary restrictions these days.
Whether it's vegetarian, vegan.
Allergies.
Allergies, exactly.
So how do you communicate that?
It's crucial to communicate those needs up front.
Right.
So you can use phrases like, I'm vegetarian. Do you have any vegetarian options?
Okay.
Or, I have a nut allergy. Could you please tell me which dishes are nut-free?
So important.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
For your safety and for your enjoyment of the meal.
Okay. And sometimes, you know, you might want to clarify something on the menu.
Right.
Like maybe a dish sounds incredibly spicy.
Yeah.
And you're not sure if you can handle the heat.
Don't be afraid to ask for clarification. You can say something like, is this dish very spicy?
Okay.
It's always better to be safe than sorry.
Yes. Especially when it comes to spicy food.
Especially spicy food.
All right. So you've ordered your meal.
We did it.
You've enjoyed a delicious culinary adventure.
Yes.
You're feeling very satisfied.
Full and happy.
And now it's time to pay the bill.
Okay.
So what's the most polite way to request the check?
When you're ready to pay, you can simply catch the waiter's eye and say, could I have the bill, please?
Okay.
Yeah, easy.
And before you pull out your credit card or your cash,
yes,
it's always a good idea to ask.
What's that?
Do you take credit cards?
Oh, yes, because you don't want to assume.
No.
And then be caught in a situation where they only take cash.
Right.
It's always best to check.
Yes, and also tipping customs.
Oh, yes.
Can vary widely.
Around the world.
Yeah.
So if you're unsure about the tipping etiquette in the country you're visiting,
right,
a discreet "is service included" can clarify things for you.
All right, so we have navigated transportation.
We have.
We've checked into our hotel.
Yeah.
And we have enjoyed a delicious meal.
We're doing great.
We are doing great.
Yes.
Feeling like a travel pro yet?
I think so.
I think so too.
Yeah.
But hold on tight.
Okay.
Because next we're diving into the exciting world of shopping.
Right.
From bustling markets to charming boutiques.
Let's go.
Okay, so we've tackled transportation, we've checked into our hotel, and we've even navigated a restaurant menu.
We're on a roll.
We are now get ready for some retail therapy.
All right.
Whether you're browsing those bustling markets for unique souvenirs or strolling through, those chic boutiques for the latest fashions shopping in a new country.
Right.
It'd be such a fun experience.
It is. It's a great way to engage with local culture and bring home a piece of your travels.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it can also be a little daunting if you're not sure how to communicate your needs.
Exactly.
Or ask about prices.
Yeah. Especially in a foreign language.
Right. So let's start with those.
Okay.
Vibrant, chaotic, utterly charming markets.
I love a good market.
I love exploring markets when I travel.
Me too.
They're just a sensory overload in the best possible way.
It's so true.
You've got those colorful textiles, exotic spices, handcrafted jewelry. It's amazing.
Yeah, markets are treasure troves of unique finds.
They are, but they can also be a little overwhelming.
They can be.
Especially if you're not sure how to navigate the bargaining process or ask about prices.
Yeah, because sometimes there are no price tags.
Right.
And you're kind of left wondering, how much is this?
Okay, imagine you're weaving through that crowded market. You spot the perfect souvenir.
Okay.
Maybe it's a beautiful scarf. Or a hand-painted ceramic bowl.
I love those.
You pick it up, you admire it, and then you realize
there's no price tag.
There's no price tag.
What do you do?
What do you do?
This is where those essential English phrases come in handy.
Yeah.
Instead of fumbling for words or resorting to, awkward gestures.
Right.
Just politely ask, how much is this?
Simple.
Easy.
And what about if you're looking for something specific?
Okay.
But you're not seeing it on display.
Right.
Like you're looking for a particular size.
Yeah.
Or a color.
Don't be afraid to ask.
Okay.
Shopkeepers are usually happy to help you find what you're looking for. Yeah. So you can try phrases like, do you have this in a smaller or larger size? Or do you have this in a different color?
Okay.
They might have it in the back or, they might be able to order it for you.
And what about trying things on?
Oh, yes. Trying things on is crucial.
Because
especially for clothing and shoes.
Made that mistake.
Yeah, we've all been there.
Where I buy something and then get home and it doesn't fit.
It doesn't fit at all.
Yes.
So always try things on. Yes. Just to make sure the fit is right before you make that purchase.
So you can just ask, can I try this on?
Perfect.
Okay.
Easy.
So we've mastered market shopping.
We have.
Now let's move on to those more upscale boutiques or department stores.
Right.
The vibe is definitely different.
It is a little more refined.
Right.
Yeah.
But those essential phrases, they're still your secret weapon.
Absolutely.
To a successful shopping experience.
In boutiques or department stores, you'll often encounter sales assistants who are eager to help you find what you're looking for.
Yes.
So don't hesitate to engage them in conversation.
Okay.
Ask for assistance.
What are some good phrases?
If you're looking for something specific, you can try phrases like, I'm looking for a new dress for a special occasion.
Yeah.
Or, could you help me find a gift for my friend?
Perfect.
Just give them an idea of what you're looking for.
And then if you need a different size, or you want to see if something comes in a different color,
you can ask, do you have this in a size and then your size?
Or does this come in any other colors?
Okay.
It's easy.
Shopping bags are full.
Yes.
It's time to shift gears from retail therapy to exploring the city.
Okay.
Those iconic landmarks, hidden gems, cultural hotspots.
Sightseeing. It's the best.
And this is where those phrases for asking directions, clarifying information, navigating transportation,
absolutely,
really come in handy.
Because you're out and about. Yeah. You're exploring. You're likely to need those phrases.
Okay, so picture this. You're standing on a bustling street corner.
All right.
You've got a map that seems to have a mind of its own.
I've been there.
And you're trying to find your way to that must-see museum.
Right.
Don't panic.
No.
Locals are often more than happy.
They are.
To point you in the right direction.
They love to help tourists.
So how do you approach someone for directions?
A polite... Excuse me.
Okay.
Could you tell me how to get to, and then the landmark or attraction? Perfect. And then what if...
Yeah.
You're not sure you understood the directions correctly.
Don't be afraid to ask for clarification.
Right.
You could say, could you repeat that, please?
Nope.
Or, I'm not sure I understood. Could you please show me on the map?
Okay, so you're not afraid to ask for help.
No, ask away.
Yeah.
People are generally happy to help.
And what about if you're trying to figure out the best way to get somewhere?
Okay.
Like, should you take the bus, the train, a taxi?
You can ask, what's the best way to get to, and then the landmark or attraction?
Okay.
Or is it better to take the bus or the train?
All right, so you've successfully navigated your way.
We did it.
To that must-see museum.
Yeah.
You've admired the exhibits.
Yes.
You've soaked up the history and culture. And now disaster strikes.
Oh, no.
You've lost your wallet.
It's a traveler's worst nightmare.
It is.
But don't worry.
Okay.
Even in stressful situations like this, knowing the right English phrases can help you get the assistance you need.
Okay, so panic is setting in.
Take a deep breath.
Okay, deep breaths.
Stay calm.
Okay.
And then if you're in a public place, approach a staff member or someone who looks like they might be able to help.
Right.
And you can say, excuse me, I've lost my wallet. Could you please help me? And be prepared to provide details about where you think you might have lost it.
Right.
What it looks like.
And then, of course, you need to contact your bank or your credit card company.
Absolutely.
To report the loss.
As soon as possible.
All right. So we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
From navigating airports and transportation.
Yeah.
To ordering food, shopping, sightseeing.
We did it all.
Even handling emergencies.
We're prepared for anything.
We are feeling empowered.
I feel empowered.
Me too.
Yeah.
But remember, language learning is an ongoing journey.
It is.
Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Right.
Ask for help. Embrace the learning process.
Every interaction is a chance to learn and grow.
Exactly.
Yes.
So as you embark on your next adventure, remember that language is not just a tool for communication.
Right.
It's a key.
It unlocks so many doors.
That unlocks a world of possibilities.
Exactly.
Well said. So, dear listeners, pack your bags, grab your passports, and don't forget those essential English phrases.
They'll be your best friend.
They will be your trusted companions on your journey.
Absolutely.
Helping you navigate the world with confidence and create memories.
Yes.
That will last a lifetime.
Beautiful.
Until next time, happy travel.
Happy travels.
Hey, everyone, and welcome to another deep dive, this time into the world of American versus British English.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, and we're going to go beyond just the basic, the stereotypical stuff that you always hear about.
Right, right.
And really kind of dig into the subtle, the sneaky little differences that even trip up advanced English speakers.
I know, because I'm one of them.
Yeah, even, people who are very, very fluent in both, but there's still some little things that are oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So we've got 15 words and phrases.
Okay.
To guide you through these sort of tricky transatlantic conversations. And trust me, you will be surprised by some of these things.
I'm ready to be surprised.
Okay, good. So what I think is interesting is that it's not just vocabulary swaps. It's it kind of gives you a peek into the history and the culture and even the humor of both countries.
Absolutely. Yeah. They really do reflect those deep cultural differences and sometimes even values.
Yeah, almost like a window into a different mindset.
Exactly.
So let's jump right in with our first word. It's one that's kind of been popping up a lot lately in both American and British English, but with a slightly different vibe. And that word is...
bespoke.
Bespoke.
Yeah. You've probably seen it in marketing materials and stuff, but how does it actually differ across the pond?
Well, in both American and British English, it basically means the same thing, which is custom made, made for a particular customer.
Right.
But in the U.S., at least, it still kind of has that connotation of something really exclusive associated with like luxury goods and services.
So like a bespoke suit or like
a bespoke suit, a bespoke car.
Right, like a Rolls Royce or something?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So it still signals like luxury prestige and really that attention to detail.
It's like it's become a marketing word almost.
It has.
Yeah.
It has. And it's becoming more common.
Right.
But it still has that sense of like, this is special.
Yeah. This is not just off the rack. This is something really unique. Whereas in British English, it's much more commonplace.
Interesting.
You can use it for anything that's customized, whether it's a wedding dress,
right,
kitchen cabinets, you name it. Our source even gives the example. She ordered a bespoke wedding dress from a designer in London.
Wow. Yeah. So it doesn't have that luxury kind of vibe to it.
Not so much. It's just like, I had this made for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Just for me.
Interesting. Okay. So the same word can have these subtle like shades of meaning depending on, where you are in the world.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. I like that.
It is. It's fascinating, and it makes you realize how much context matters when you're communicating.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay, let's shift gears a little bit to a word that I think often trips people up. And this is like the classic queue versus line dilemma.
Ah, yes, the great transatlantic queue debate.
Right.
One of those fundamental differences that just seems so simple, but they reveal so much about those cultural perspectives.
Right.
So in the U.S., you stand in line, which to me kind of implies a more individualistic approach, like everyone's just focused on their own thing, getting it done. Whereas in the U.K., you queue.
Right.
And that suggests orderliness.
Right.
Shared social etiquette. Like, we're all in this together. We're all going to wait patiently for our turn.
And it's almost like a cultural institution in Britain, the concept of queuing.
Absolutely. It is. It's deeply ingrained in British society. You queue at the bus stop, you queue at the grocery store.
Right.
You even queue at the pub.
Yeah, you better queue up.
Yeah. And there's an unspoken understanding that you wait your turn. It's just part of their social fabric.
Yeah. And it makes you wonder, is that reflected in other aspects of British life? Is that that whole like sense of order and politeness and
oh, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting. Okay, let's move on to a word that describes a feeling we all know too well, but express it differently. Utter exhaustion. So in American English, we might say exhausted, but our British friends have a wonderfully evocative word for this, and that word is knackered.
Knackered. Knackered. Oh, yeah. I love that word.
It's a good one, isn't it?
It is. It's so descriptive. It goes beyond just being tired.
Right.
It really conveys that sense of being completely drained, worn out.
Right, like you've just hit a wall.
You've hit a wall, you're done. Yeah. And while Americans might use exhausted in a similar way, knackered has this playfulness to it. Like almost like they're poking fun at their own fatigue.
Right. Right.
Which is very British.
Yeah, it's a good one. And our source uses the example, I'm absolutely knackered after working a double shift.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think perfectly captures that.
It does.
But I'm curious, do you think that playful tone is like a way of downplaying the severity of it?
Possibly. Yeah, it could be like a coping mechanism.
Right.
Like make light of a difficult situation, which, as we've said, is very British.
Yeah, very British for sure. Okay. Ready for our next word?
Hit me.
Okay. So this is a word that is a bit of a chameleon. It changes its meaning depending on which side of the pond you're on, and that word is fancy. Fancy, yeah, so in American English, fancy typically means, something elaborate.
Right.
Or upscale, like a fancy dinner or a fancy hotel.
Fancy restaurant, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But in British English, it takes on a whole other meaning.
It does. It has like a secret double life.
Right.
It means to want or to like something. So you might ask a British friend, do you fancy a cuppa?
Do you fancy a cuppa?
Which means, would you like a cup of tea?
Right.
So simple question, but a very different meaning.
Yeah, I'd say yes to that any day of the week.
Exactly.
A cuppa. Okay, on to our next word, another one that showcases the British love for expressive language. This one is chuffed. Chuffed.
Love it.
It's a good one.
Yep.
A good one.
Yep.
It expresses a feeling of great delight or satisfaction.
Yeah, it goes beyond just being pleased.
Right.
It's like absolutely thrilled over the moon, delighted.
So it's like pleased on steroids.
You could say that, yes, if your British friend says, I'm chuffed to bits about your new job, they're not just happy for you, they're ecstatic.
Yeah, they're like really, really happy for you.
Really, really happy.
Yeah. It's like, I love that it's such a specific word.
It is.
For that very specific emotion.
Yeah, it captures that feeling of pure joy.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk a little bit about some seasonal vocabulary. When those leaves start changing color, and Americans call it fall,
Our British friends call it autumn.
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 Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always found it interesting how those different words evoke different images in my mind.
Right.
You know, fall feels more crisp and dynamic, like the leaves are like actively falling.
Yeah.
Whereas autumn has a more mellow, kind of wistful feel to it.
More romantic, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting how these subtle differences in wording can like shape our perceptions of the world around us.
Absolutely. It really highlights how language can influence our thoughts and even our emotions.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay, let's explore how Americans and Brits measure time.
Okay.
What do you got for me on this one?
Well, this is a fun one. In British English, they use the word fortnight to denote 2 weeks.
A fortnight.
Yeah. Whereas Americans would simply say 2 weeks.
Right.
Fortnight sounds a little old-fashioned.
Yeah, it does a little bit more literary almost.
Right.
Or historical.
Yeah.
But it's still quite common in British English.
I kind of like it.
Yeah, it's got a charm to it.
Yeah, like a little nod to a bygone era.
Absolutely.
It's cool. Okay. Let's talk about another area where we see these transatlantic differences, and that is taking a break from work or school.
Okay.
So, Americans go on vacation.
The British go on holiday.
Holiday. Right? Same concept, different word. But it's interesting, this distinction kind of highlights how language evolves. Both words, vacation and holiday, have Latin roots.
Right.
But they've kind of taken on slightly different meanings over time.
They've each gone on their own little linguistic journey.
Yeah.
Reflecting the cultural nuances of their respective countries.
Right. Like the evolution of language.
Exactly. Okay, now we're going to step into a potential minefield of misunderstanding. This is all about wardrobe essentials. What Americans call pants.
The British call trousers.
Trousers. But here's where things get really interesting.
Yes.
In British English, pants typically refer to underwear.
Underwear.
So a simple statement like, I need new pants.
Could lead to some very awkward situations.
Oh my God.
If you're talking to someone from the UK.
Like, so you're in London, you're like, I need some new pants. And they're like,
you're looking at you like, whoa.
Oh.
Yeah. You want to buy new underwear right now? So be careful with that one.
Be very, very careful.
Stick with trousers if you want to avoid any awkwardness.
Okay, trousers. Got it. Speaking of potentially embarrassing mix-ups, our next word is one that I think Americans need to be extra careful with, and that word is rubber.
Rubber.
Now, in British English, this is a simple word. It means an eraser. You know that thing you use to rub out pencil marks?
Right.
But in American English, rubber has a completely different meaning.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Yeah.
And it's not something we're going to discuss on this show, but...
we'll let your imagination run wild.
Yeah.
But suffice it to say, it's best to stick with eraser to avoid any red faces.
Yes, stick with eraser.
Stick with eraser.
Americans, be very, very careful.
Yes.
Our source really emphasizes this. They're like, warning.
Yeah.
Okay, shifting gears a little bit to places of healing, what we call in American English. A doctor's office in British English is often called a surgery.
A surgery?
A surgery. But here's where things can get a little tricky.
They can.
Because in British English, surgery can also refer to the consultation hours at a doctor's office. So you might hear someone say, I'm going to the surgery at 9 a.m. for a checkup.
Right.
And that doesn't necessarily mean they're having a medical procedure.
No, it just means they're going to see their doctor.
Right.
During their consultation time.
Got it.
So again, context is everything.
Yeah.
When it comes to language.
Right. Very, very true. Okay, let's move on to a mode of transportation that helps us conquer those tall buildings. Americans take the elevator.
The British hop in the lift.
The lift, two different words, same vertical journey.
Exactly.
And, this difference, I think, goes way back to the early days of these contraptions. Elevator, with its emphasis on lifting, kind of reflects that American focus on functionality.
Yeah.
Whereas lift, with the more simpler, elegant sound, might reflect a British appreciation for understated design.
It's a fascinating thought, isn't it?
It is like the words themselves.
Yeah.
Kind of give you a clue.
They do.
Okay, ready for another housing showdown?
I am.
Okay, in American English, we live in apartments.
Our British counterparts reside in flats.
The flat. So both words paint a picture of, like, a self-contained living space within a larger building.
Right, yeah.
But they do conjure up kind of different images.
They do, don't they?
Like apartment to me feels more modern and spacious.
Modern, spacious, maybe even a little bit luxurious.
Right.
Whereas a flat feels cozier, more intimate.
Right.
Maybe even a little bit quirky.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So apartment might be like a sleek high-rise.
Exactly.
And a flat might be like, charming,
yeah,
older building with character.
A little more character, yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing how these words can carry such nuanced cultural baggage.
They do. It's fascinating.
It is. Okay, speaking of nuanced cultural baggage, let's talk about entertainment.
Okay.
So Americans go to the cinema to watch a movie.
In British English, they go to the cinema to see a film.
A film.
2 words.
Same cinematic experience, but again, they reflect a little bit of a different perspective.
Right.
Like movie emphasizes movement action.
Mm-hmm.
The spectacle of it all.
The entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas film kind of highlights the artistry, the craft.
The medium itself.
Yeah. Like movie is more about the entertainment value.
Right.
And film is more like it's elevated to an art form.
Exactly. And that distinction really speaks volumes about how Americans and Brits approach cinema in general.
It really does. It's really interesting. Okay, last but not least, let's talk about food.
Okay.
When we're craving that restaurant meal,
yeah,
but we don't feel like dining in,
right,
Americans order takeout.
The British go for takeaway.
Takeaway. And here's where things can get a little tricky again, because in British English, takeaway can refer to both the food itself and the restaurant that provides it.
Yes.
So you might hear someone say, let's get Indian takeaway. And that could mean either ordering food or going to an Indian takeaway restaurant.
Exactly.
So again,
context
is everything you got to pay attention to those subtle cues in British English to make sure you're on the same page.
Right.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive, from bespoke suits to knackered Brits. We've explored some really interesting differences between American and British English, uncovering these hidden layers of history, culture, and humor along the way. And I think it's been fascinating to see how those differences can sometimes lead to miscommunication.
Absolutely.
Or at least a little bit of confusion, but it also makes the learning process all the more interesting.
You've done an excellent job of not just identifying these differences, but also analyzing what they reveal about the two cultures.
Well, I've had a wonderful guide, but we're not done yet.
No, we are not.
There are still more linguistic gems to uncover.
Yes.
So buckle up. Get ready for part 2, where we delve into even more fascinating distinctions, including some surprising transatlantic twists on everyday words and phrases.
It's going to be good.
It's going to be good.
You won't want to miss it.
Stay tuned. Welcome back to our deep dive into the wonderfully quirky world of American versus British English.
And I think you'll find these next few examples particularly intriguing.
Oh, good.
We're going to delve into some everyday words and phrases that take on surprisingly different meanings across the Atlantic.
Okay, hit me with those linguistic curveballs.
Yeah.
What's first on our list?
Let's start with something we all do every day walk in American English. We use the sidewalk to get from point A to point B.
But in British English, they stroll along the pavement.
Same concrete path, different terminology.
Right.
And this seemingly simple distinction actually reveals a lot about cultural perspectives in the U.S. The emphasis is on the side as if it's an addition to the road, almost an afterthought.
Right.
But in the UK, the pavement is the main focus, the designated space for pedestrians.
That's a really interesting observation. It makes you wonder if that difference in terminology reflects a broader difference in how pedestrians are viewed or treated in both countries.
It's definitely something to ponder. Okay, let's move on to something that's near and dear to all of us, food, specifically those sweet treats that bring us joy in American English. We indulge in cookies,
while our British friends savor biscuits.
Now, this is where things can get a bit tricky, because what Americans call biscuits are more like what the British would call scones.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It's a classic case of a transatlantic word swap.
And a potentially confusing one. Especially if you're craving a chewy chocolate chip cookie and end up with a crumbly, buttery scone. Instead, talk about a culinary disappointment.
I know, right? A total letdown. Speaking of potential disappointments, let's move on to another food-related distinction that often causes confusion. Snacks when we're feeling peckish and want a quick bite. Americans reach for chips,
while the British opt for crisps.
And to make things even more interesting, what Americans call French fries, the British call chips.
That's a total chip swap.
It is, and one that can lead to some amusing misunderstandings, especially when ordering food at a restaurant.
Right. Imagine asking for chips in London, expecting a side of fries, only to be served a bag of what you'd call potato chips.
Exactly, or vice versa.
Oh, man.
It's a good reminder that even seemingly simple words can have very different meanings depending on where you are in the world.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's shift gears and talk about something a bit more practical: transportation in American English. We fill up our cars with gas.
While in British English, they top up with petrol.
Same fuel, different terminology.
And this distinction is particularly important if you're ever driving in a foreign country and need to find a petrol station.
Right.
You don't want to end up stranded with an empty tank because you used the wrong word.
That would not be good.
No, not at all. Speaking of transportation, let's talk about those iconic red buses that grace the streets of London. In American English, we'd simply call them buses.
But in British English, they're often referred to as coaches.
Now, this is where things can get a bit confusing because in American English, a coach typically refers to a long-distance bus or a private bus used for tours or sporting events.
Right. Like a tour bus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you're in London and someone tells you to catch the coach, they're probably not talking about a luxury tour bus.
Right.
They simply mean to hop on the regular city bus.
Got it. It's all about context.
It is, and it's a reminder that even seemingly straightforward words can have multiple meanings depending on the region and situation.
Okay, let's move on to a topic that's near and dear to my heart. Books. When we finish reading a book, Americans typically return it to the library.
While in British English, they take it back to the library.
It's a subtle difference, but I find it fascinating because it highlights how even simple verbs can vary across regions.
And those subtle variations can sometimes reveal underlying cultural nuances. For instance, the American emphasis on returning might suggest a sense of ownership as if the book is being given back to its rightful place.
Right.
Whereas the British use of taking back might imply a more transactional approach, as if the book is simply being returned to its point of origin.
Like almost like we borrowed it and now we're taking it back.
Exactly. It's like those different verbs offer a glimpse into the unspoken rules and expectations surrounding books and libraries in both cultures.
That's really thought-provoking.
Yeah.
Okay, let's wrap up this segment with a distinction that's particularly relevant in today's digital age. When we want to find information online, Americans typically use Google to search.
While in British English, they often use Google to look something up.
Again, it's a subtle difference, but it reflects how language adapts to new technologies and cultural practices. Search feels more active and directed, like you're on a mission to find specific information.
Right.
While look something up feels more casual, like you're simply browsing for information or clarifying something you're curious about.
And that distinction might reflect a broader cultural difference in how Americans and Brits approach information gathering. It's fascinating food for thought.
It really is. Well, we've certainly covered a lot of ground in this segment, from sidewalks and cookies to petrol and coaches. We've explored a wide range of American versus British English variations, uncovering hidden layers of cultural meaning and potential pitfalls for the unsuspecting traveler or language enthusiast.
You've done a fantastic job of not only highlighting these differences, but also prompting us to think critically about what they reveal about the two cultures and how they influence our communication.
Well, having you as my expert guide has made this journey both insightful and enjoyable. But our linguistic adventure isn't over yet, is it?
Not quite. We still have more fascinating distinctions to uncover in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay, I'm ready. Bring on part 3.
Get ready for some even more intriguing and potentially confusing transatlantic twists on everyday words and phrases. Stay tuned.
All right, welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into American versus British English.
I feel like we've uncovered so many linguistic surprises already.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling there are still more gems waiting to be discovered.
I think so too. So are you ready to wrap up this transatlantic adventure with a bang?
Absolutely. We've explored some fascinating vocabulary variations.
Yep.
But now let's delve into a few more examples that highlight those subtle but significant ways in which American and British English diverge, even in the simplest of actions.
Okay, bring it on. What linguistic mysteries are we unraveling in this final segment?
Well, let's start with something we all do when the temperature drops: bundle up.
Right.
In American English, we put on a sweater when we need an extra layer of warmth.
But in British English, they do in a jumper.
Jumper, same cozy garment, different name.
Right. And that difference in terminology might actually reflect a subtle difference in cultural attitudes toward clothing.
Possibly.
Like sweater emphasizes the practical purpose of the garment, keeping you warm when you sweat.
Right.
But jumper has a more playful, almost whimsical feel to it.
Yeah, like it's meant to make you feel light and bouncy.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that observation. It's amazing how even something as simple as a name for a piece of clothing can reveal these subtle cultural nuances.
It is fascinating, isn't it?
It is. Okay, let's move on to something that's sure to spark some friendly rivalry. The beloved game of soccer.
Oh, yes.
In American English, we call it soccer.
While our friends across the pond simply refer to it as football.
Football. Now, this is a classic example of a transatlantic word swap.
It is.
That often leads to some good-natured teasing.
Absolutely, especially during major sporting events like the World Cup.
Oh, yeah. I can just imagine the banter back and forth.
Oh, yeah.
You call it soccer, we call it football, but we all know who the real fans are.
Exactly, but at the end of the day, we're all united by our love of the game no matter what we call it.
Right.
It's a reminder that even when our words differ, we can still find common ground through shared passion.
Right. Very true. Okay, speaking of common ground, let's tackle another difference that often trips people up, how we talk about time.
Okay.
So in American English, we might say, I have class this afternoon.
While a British person might say, I have class this evening.
And this is where things can get a little tricky because afternoon and evening don't always have the same boundaries in both varieties of English.
Right.
In general, Americans tend to use afternoon for a broader period of time, extending later into the day than what British English speakers might consider afternoon.
So it's almost like the American afternoon stretches further into the evening hours.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And that can definitely lead to confusion if you're trying to schedule something with someone from the UK.
Definitely always best to clarify to avoid any scheduling mishaps.
Right. A good point. Okay, and speaking of potential mishaps, let's delve into the world of higher education. Another area where American and British English use different terms for the same concept. So in American English, we attend college after high school.
While in British English, they go to university.
University, same concept, different terminology.
And this distinction can be important when navigating academic conversations or applying to institutions in different countries.
Right.
Imagine telling a British professor that you're applying to college when they're expecting you to say university.
Oops. Yeah, that could be a little awkward.
A little bit, yeah. So it's all about using the right lingo to fit in and avoid those awkward moments.
Right. Very true. Okay, ready for our final linguistic showdown?
I believe so.
All right. Let's explore how Americans and Brits express that feeling of being overwhelmed with work or commitments.
Okay.
In American English, we might say, I'm slammed.
While a British person might say, I'm snowed under.
Snowed under, both expressions convey that sense of being buried under a heavy workload. But they use different imagery to paint that picture.
They do.
I'm slammed. Kind of evokes a sense of sudden impact.
Yeah, like you've been hit with a ton of bricks all at once.
Right, exactly. Whereas snowed under suggests a more gradual accumulation, like you're slowly being buried beneath a growing pile of tasks.
And those subtle differences in imagery can actually reveal a lot about how Americans and Brits approach work and stress.
That's an interesting thought.
It is fascinating how even the simplest of phrases can offer a glimpse into those deeper cultural patterns.
It really is why we've really gone deep on this journey.
We have.
From sweaters and football to afternoons and universities, we've explored so many fascinating nuances of American versus British English, uncovering these hidden layers of history, culture, and even psychology along the way.
I think it's been a truly enriching exploration.
I agree. I feel like I've gained a whole new level of understanding and appreciation for these two varieties of English.
Me too. It's been fascinating to see how language is more than just a tool for communication. It's a reflection of our cultural values, our historical experiences, and even our individual perspectives on the world.
It really is, and that's what makes the study of language so endlessly fascinating.
Absolutely.
There's always more to discover, more to learn, and more to appreciate.
Always.
So I hope our listeners have enjoyed this deep dive into the wonderfully weird world of American versus British English as much as we have.
I'm sure they have. And remember, the journey of linguistic discovery doesn't end here. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep celebrating the diversity and richness of language in all its forms.
That's great advice. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Ever wish you could just download a new language straight into your brain?
Haha, wouldn't that be amazing?
Seriously. But in the meantime, you sent over this mini lesson all about learning English words every single day.
Yeah.
And, squeezing it into just 20 minutes. That was intriguing enough to make me want to hit download on this deep dive.
I love that. We're installing an upgrade, right?
Totally.
And honestly, 20 minutes, that feels doable even on the busiest day.
Yeah.
You know what really hooked me was how the mini lesson focuses on strategies that just fit into everyday life.
Yeah, exactly. It's not about cramming or anything. It's more about, finding ways to weave new words into what you're already doing. Like take the first strategy, for example.
Okay.
Reading or listening to things you actually enjoy.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it sounds obvious.
It does.
But how often do we actually do that?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think we get so caught up in like textbooks and exercises that we kind of forget about the power of just genuine interest. When you're actually hooked on a topic, learning new words just feels less like a chore.
Totally. It feels more like a natural part of the experience.
Right.
The mini lesson suggests choosing a short article.
Okay.
Maybe like 300, 500 words on something you love. I mean, that feels so much less intimidating than tackling like War and Peace in English.
Oh, for sure.
What about things like podcasts or videos?
Oh, yeah.
Those work too.
Absolutely. Especially if you're someone who's more of an auditory learner. Podcasts and videos can be incredibly immersive.
Yeah.
And there's just such a huge variety out there that you're bound to find something that really aligns with what you're interested in.
Right.
And don't be afraid to use things like subtitles or transcripts.
Oh, yeah. Give me time.
Just to help you catch those new words.
Okay. So let's say we're like cruising along, enjoying our favorite blog or podcast, and bam, we hit a word we've never seen before. What's the next step?
Well, the mini lesson talks about keeping a vocabulary journal.
Okay.
Or using an app.
Got it. So is one of those better than the other?
It really just boils down to personal preference. I think some people really love that hands-on feeling of writing in a journal.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're creating your own personalized dictionary with definitions, sample sentences, maybe even little doodles or sketches.
Oh, that's so cool. Turning it into a creative project.
Yeah.
But what about apps? Do they offer anything that a journal can't?
Apps can be fantastic, especially when it comes to this thing called spaced repetition.
Spaced repetition.
Yeah, and this is where technology really shines.
Okay.
They'll actually remind you to review words.
Oh, wow.
At specific intervals.
Okay. Which
research shows is super effective for, moving information into your long-term memory.
Got it. So it's kind of like having a personal vocabulary trainer.
Yes.
Built into your phone. Speaking of taking detailed notes.
Yeah.
The mini lesson has this sample journal entry for the word intriguing.
Oh, yeah.
It's got a definition, an example sentence, even a synonym and an antonym.
Wow.
It's pretty thorough.
That level of detail might seem like overkill to some people.
Yeah.
But it's what helps to really cement the word in your mind.
Makes sense.
It's not just about recognizing the word. It's about really understanding
okay.
its nuances, its connections to other words, and how to use it correctly.
Got it. I am all about making things fun, so this next strategy really caught my eye.
Oh, tell me about it.
It involves sticky notes. And lots of them.
I love sticky notes.
So basically, you label everyday objects around your house with their English names.
Oh, I see.
I can already see myself sticking refrigerator on, my refrigerator.
It might seem a little silly at first, but think about it. Every time you go to grab a snack, you're getting a mini vocabulary lesson.
That's true.
That constant visual reinforcement can really help those words stick.
Right. Plus, if anyone asks, you can tell them you're conducting a very important linguistic experiment.
Exactly.
And here's another little digital twist the mini lesson suggests.
Okay.
Changing your phone's language settings to English.
Oh, that's smart.
Right.
It's such a simple hack, but it's brilliant. You're constantly interacting with your phone. So all those basic words like settings, messages, calendar, they just become ingrained in your mind through sheer repetition. It's like passive vocabulary training.
Okay, I have to admit, I've been guilty of this next one myself.
Oh.
Learning words in isolation.
Yeah.
But the mini lesson stresses the importance of learning words in context. Why is that so crucial?
I think rote memorization might help you pass like a vocabulary quiz or something, but it doesn't necessarily lead to true understanding.
Okay.
When you encounter a word in context, in a sentence or a phrase, you see how it interacts with other words. You know how its meaning shifts subtly depending on the surrounding language.
So it's like the difference between knowing the individual ingredients of a cake versus understanding how they all work together to create that final delicious result.
No, right. Exactly. The mini lesson even mentions this idea of collocations.
Collocations, okay.
Yeah, words that just tend to go together naturally.
Okay.
Like make a decision, or heavy rain, or take a break.
Got it.
And learning these kind of chunks of language can help you sound more fluent, more natural.
It's like learning the right dance steps.
Yes.
Instead of just flailing your arms around randomly on the dance floor.
Exactly.
Now, I know we're all about making language learning fun and engaging, but there's no escaping the need for consistency.
Right. And that's where that final strategy comes in.
Okay.
Practice and review consistently.
Got it. And this is where that spaced repetition we talked about earlier comes into play.
Yes, exactly. The mini lesson suggests reviewing new words, after one day, 3 days, a week, and so on.
Okay.
And this gradual spacing helps those words really sink in.
Right.
And become part of your long-term vocabulary.
It's like you're building a vocabulary muscle.
Yes.
You need to work it out regularly to see results.
You got it.
The mini lesson even breaks down a sample review schedule where you learn like 5 new words a day.
Okay.
And then review them at these specific intervals. It feels so much less overwhelming when you see it all laid out like that.
Absolutely. Even just like 10 or 15 minutes a day, whether it's reviewing flashcards, writing your vocabulary journal, or doing a quick self-quiz, it can make a huge difference over time. It's about finding those pockets of time in your day and turning them into vocabulary-boosting opportunities.
I love it. So we've covered some really solid strategies for learning new words.
We have.
But the mini lesson doesn't stop there.
It doesn't.
No. It also provides some practical activities to actually put those strategies into action.
Ooh, okay, I like this.
The first one's called a quick flash review.
Quick flash review, okay.
Which, as the name suggests, involves flashcards.
Makes sense.
I'm guessing most people are pretty familiar with the concept of flashcards, right?
Yeah, they're classic for a reason.
For sure.
But you know what? The mini lesson adds a fun little twist.
What's that?
A timer challenge.
Oh, cool.
So you set a timer for 1 minute, and you try to get through as many flashcards as possible.
Okay.
It's a great way to add a little friendly competition to your review sessions.
Love it.
Even if you're just competing against yourself.
Right. I love the idea of gamifying learning.
Me too.
It can really help keep things interesting.
For sure.
And prevent those review sessions from becoming, monotonous.
Absolutely. Now, the next activity is where things get a little bit more interactive.
Okay.
It's the word of the day role play.
Ooh, this one sounds fun. So the idea is to choose a word of the day.
Right.
Why don't we use one we've mentioned already?
Okay, yeah.
How about intriguing?
Intriguing, perfect choice. Now we each need to come up with a short dialogue.
Okay.
So where we use intriguing naturally. At least twice.
Okay.
Imagine we're at a bookstore.
All right, give me a sec to think. Okay, I got it. We're browsing the shelves, and I spot a book with a cover that just screams, "Read me."
Haha, I'm already hooked. What happens next?
I turn to you and say, "Wow, this new mystery novel looks so intriguing. I've heard great things about the author."
And I might reply with something like, I've been meaning to try something different. Tell me more about what makes it so intriguing.
See, it's all about finding ways to use the word in a context that feels, real and relatable.
Exactly.
The mini lesson encourages you, the listener, to come up with your own dialogues too.
It's such a fantastic way to practice using new vocabulary in a creative and engaging way. Now, the final activity is perhaps the easiest and most accessible of them all.
Okay.
Self-talk.
We all do it, right?
We do.
But now we have an excuse to do it in English.
Exactly. The idea is to simply narrate your actions throughout the day.
Okay.
I'm making breakfast, I'm walking to work, I'm answering emails.
Yeah.
The challenge is to try to sprinkle in at least one new word each day.
That's a good challenge.
Right.
It's such a low-pressure way to practice.
It is.
You're your own audience, so there's no fear of judgment.
Right. And over time, you'll be surprised at how naturally those new words start to flow.
That's awesome. So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
We talked about key strategies, practical activities. But before we move on, I want to highlight one important takeaway that really resonated with me.
Okay, I'm all ears.
It's the reminder that learning new words is not just about, expanding your vocabulary. It's about expanding your horizons, your ability to engage with the world around you in deeper and more meaningful ways.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Right.
It's about unlocking new possibilities.
Exactly. And with that in mind, I'd love to hear from you, the listener.
Oh, yeah.
What word of the day would you choose, and what scenario would you create to practice using it?
Ooh, I love it.
Share your ideas in the comments below.
That's a great way to bring the listener into the conversation.
Right.
It's all about making vocabulary learning interactive and engaging.
Totally.
Okay.
Now, let's kind of shift gears a little bit.
Okay.
And explore another activity from the mini lesson.
All right.
Self-talk.
Ah, yes, the art of talking to yourself.
In English.
In English.
It might sound a little strange at first.
Yeah.
But it's actually a brilliant way to practice.
It is.
Without any pressure or self-consciousness. You can do it anywhere, anytime.
You know, I've been trying this out myself lately, and I found it surprisingly helpful. Yeah. It's like having this internal dialogue that helps to solidify those new words in my mind.
Okay, let's give it a try right now.
All right.
I'm going to try to incorporate a new word into my self-talk.
Okay.
How about this? I'm finding this deep dive into vocabulary learning to be quite enlightening. I'm curious to see what other strategies we'll uncover next.
That's a great example. Yeah. You seamlessly worked in a new word and made it sound totally natural.
Thanks. And you know what's even more fascinating?
What?
The fact that we're constantly learning and evolving, even as, seasoned podcast hosts.
So true. There's always something new to discover.
Right.
Even in a field we're already familiar with. It's like we're back to that first tip from the mini lesson.
Right.
Choosing content that genuinely interests us.
And that's what keeps learning fresh and exciting.
Yeah.
When you're curious and engaged, your brain is just primed to absorb new information.
Absolutely.
Speaking of curiosity, have you come across anything lately that's really sparked your interest? Maybe something completely outside the realm of language learning.
Well, I've been reading a lot about the latest developments in virtual reality technology.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, the potential applications in education, particularly language learning, are pretty mind-blowing.
Wow, that does sound fascinating. Can't imagine how immersive VR experiences could revolutionize the way we learn languages.
Right. The possibilities are pretty much endless. But you know what else I find amazing?
What's that?
The human brain's capacity for language learning. Its inherent ability to adapt and grow.
It is remarkable. We're wired for communication.
Yeah.
To connect with each other through words.
Absolutely. And the more words we have at our disposal, the richer and more nuanced those connections can be. It's like having a wider palette of colors to paint with, or a more diverse set of instruments to compose music with.
Oh, I love those metaphors.
Right.
They perfectly capture the beauty and power of language.
And that brings us back to the core message of this deep dive.
Okay.
Listening new English words daily is not just about expanding your vocabulary.
Right.
It's about expanding your horizons, your ability to engage with the world around you in deeper, more meaningful ways.
It's about unlocking new possibilities, both personally and professionally.
Exactly.
So as you kind of embark on this vocabulary building journey, remember this. Every new word you learn is a key. That unlocks a new door, a new perspective, a new connection.
Oh, I love that.
Right.
And who knows what amazing discoveries might be waiting for you on the other side.
This has been such an insightful deep dive so far. We started with a mini lesson on daily vocabulary learning, and now we're pondering the future of virtual reality.
I know.
And the incredible capabilities of the human brain.
It's amazing how one topic can lead to another.
It is.
How interconnected knowledge truly is.
It reminds me of that famous saying, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
That is so true. And that realization is both humbling and exhilarating.
It is.
It fuels our curiosity.
Yeah.
And it drives us to keep learning, to keep exploring.
Which is exactly what we're here to do.
Yeah.
Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought-provoking question.
Oh, I love these final thoughts.
Right.
They always leave me with something to ponder long after the episode ends.
Me too.
Yeah.
Okay, here it is. We've talked a lot about the practical benefits of learning new words. But what about the emotional impact? How does learning a new word make you feel?
Ooh, that's such an insightful question.
Right.
It goes beyond just the cognitive aspects of language, and it taps into the deeper, more personal side of learning.
Think about it. When you finally grasp the meaning of a word that's been eluding you.
Right.
Or when you use a newly learned word confidently in a conversation.
Yeah.
How does it make you feel?
Yeah. Do you feel a sense of accomplishment, of empowerment? Yeah. Maybe even a little thrill of excitement.
I do. It's like cracking a code or unlocking a secret.
Yeah.
And that feeling of mastery.
Yeah.
Of expanding your linguistic repertoire.
Yeah.
It can be incredibly motivating.
So true. So as you continue on your vocabulary journey, Pay attention not just to the words themselves, but to the emotions they evoke. Let those positive feelings fuel your passion for language learning.
I love that. And remember, every new word you learn is a victory.
It is.
A testament to your ability to grow and evolve.
Beautifully said.
We'll be back soon with part 2 of our deep dive into learning English words daily.
Can't wait.
Until then, happy learning.
And may your vocabulary be ever expanding.
See you soon.
Bye. That was such a great question to end on.
Yeah.
I love how you brought the emotional aspect of language learning into the mix.
It's so true, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about adding words to like a mental list or whatever.
Yeah.
It's about how those words make us feel, you know? More confident, more connected.
Yeah.
More capable of expressing ourselves.
Exactly.
Like every new word adds another brushstroke to the canvas of our communication.
Ooh, I like that.
Okay, enough with the artsy metaphors for now.
Okay.
Remember all those practical activities from the mini lesson? I'm thinking it's time to try one out ourselves.
Okay.
Live and direct for our listeners' benefit.
Ooh, a live demo.
Yeah.
I'm always up for a challenge.
All right.
Which one are we thinking?
Let's revisit the word of the day role play.
Okay.
We already picked our word. Enlightening.
Yeah.
Inspired by that self-talk example we just did. Now let's see if we can weave it into like a spontaneous dialogue.
All right, game on. Let's set the scene. How about we pretend we just finished listening to a guest speaker at a conference?
Love it. Conferences are full of enlightening moments, or at least they're supposed to be.
Right.
Okay, so picture this. We're walking out of the auditorium, still buzzing from the talk.
Okay.
And you turn to me and say,
"Wow, that presentation on the future of renewable energy was so enlightening. I had no idea we were making such progress."
And I'd reply, "I know, right? It was really enlightening to hear about those new solar panel technologies. It gives me hope for a more sustainable future."
Nailed it.
Ooh.
We managed to use enlightening in a natural, conversational way.
See? It wasn't even that hard.
Not at all.
You, listening right now, can do this too.
Yeah.
Pick a word, any word, and imagine a scenario where you might use it. The mini lesson makes a great point. You're much more likely to remember a word if you can connect it to a real-life situation.
Absolutely. The more you can make those connections, the more those new words will start to feel like your own.
Now, there's one more activity from the mini lesson we haven't tackled yet.
Oh, which one?
Self-talk.
Oh, right.
Remember, this is where you basically narrate your own life in English, sprinkling in those newly acquired words.
It might sound a little silly at first.
Yeah.
But honestly, who's judging? You're your own audience.
Exactly.
Plus, it's a fantastic way to practice without any pressure.
Okay, let's give it a go.
All right.
Imagine I'm making my morning coffee.
Okay.
I could say something like, "The aroma of freshly brewed coffee is incredibly invigorating.
Yeah.
It's the perfect way to start a productive day."
See? Effortless.
Ha.
And you slipped in invigorating like a pro.
I try.
What's fascinating about this technique is that it forces you to think about how to use the word
Okay.
in a way that makes sense for you in your daily routine.
It's like tailoring a vocabulary suit that fits perfectly.
Exactly. It's about making those words your own.
Right.
Integrating them into the fabric of your daily life.
This deep dive has been so insightful so far.
Yes.
We've gone from practical strategies to hands-on activities and even touched upon like the emotional side of language learning.
Right.
But what really strikes me is this underlying theme of personalization.
Oh, interesting.
It's not about following a rigid set of rules or anything.
Yeah.
It's about finding what works for you, making those words come alive in your own unique way.
You hit the nail on the head. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to language learning.
No.
What matters most is finding methods that resonate with you, that keep you engaged and motivated.
And that's the beauty of this mini lesson, right?
Absolutely.
It's packed with ideas and activities.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it empowers you to be the architect of your own vocabulary journey.
Absolutely. It's like a toolbox filled with all the tools you need to build your own linguistic masterpiece.
I love it.
Speaking of tools,
Yeah.
do you remember that point in the mini lesson about spaced repetition?
Oh, yeah.
I think it's worth revisiting
Okay.
because it's such a powerful technique.
Absolutely. For anyone just joining us, spaced repetition is this brilliant idea of reviewing material at increasing intervals. So you might review a new word after a day, then 3 days, then a week, and so on.
Right.
It's all about outsmarting your brain's tendency to forget things.
Exactly. And what's so cool is that there's a scientific basis for this.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Research has shown that spaced repetition actually helps to strengthen those neural pathways in your brain.
Wow.
Making it much more likely that those new words will stick around for the long haul.
So it's like building a mental muscle memory.
Yes.
For vocabulary.
And here's where technology can really come in handy.
Okay.
There are tons of apps out there that do the spacing for you.
Oh, nice.
So you don't have to keep track of all those review dates or anything.
That's awesome.
It's like having a personal vocabulary coach in your pocket.
Speaking of personal coaches, have you ever tried working with a language tutor?
Oh, yeah.
Or joining a conversation group? The mini lesson didn't really go into those options in detail.
Right.
But I think they're worth mentioning.
Absolutely. Having a tutor or a language partner can provide that extra layer of accountability.
Yeah.
And personalized feedback.
It's like having a guide on your vocabulary trek.
Exactly. And conversation groups are fantastic for, putting those new words into practice in a real-world setting.
Right. It's one thing to recognize a word on a page or in a flashcard.
Yeah.
But it's a whole different ball game to be able to use it confidently in a conversation.
I agree.
So to our listener out there, if you're feeling stuck or want to take your vocabulary learning to the next level, don't hesitate to explore those options.
Good advice.
There's a whole community of language learners out there ready to support and encourage you on your journey.
Now let's shift gears for a moment.
Okay.
And talk about something that often gets overlooked in language learning.
What's that?
The importance of pronunciation.
Yes, pronunciation. Right. The art of making those sounds that twist and turn our tongues in ways we never imagined.
So true. And while the mini lesson didn't really delve too deeply into this aspect, I think it's crucial for anyone who wants to be understood and to sound more fluent.
Absolutely. Think about it. You might have this vast vocabulary. But if your pronunciation is off, it can create a communication barrier.
Exactly. It's like having a beautiful message written on a piece of paper, but then crumpling it up before you hand it to someone.
Oh, no.
The message is there. But it's difficult to decipher.
So what are some tips for improving pronunciation? What worked for you on your language learning journey?
One thing that really helped me was listening intently to native speakers. I would pay close attention to how they formed sounds, the rhythm and intonation of their speech.
It's like training your ears. To pick up those subtle nuances.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's practice, practice, practice. I would spend hours repeating words and phrases, trying to mimic those native speaker sounds as closely as possible.
It's like fine-tuning a musical instrument, getting those notes to ring out clearly and accurately.
And don't be afraid to use resources, too, like online dictionaries and pronunciation guides. They can be incredibly helpful. Especially for those tricky sounds that just don't exist in your native language.
And remember, there are so many different accents and dialects out there.
That's true.
Don't feel pressured to sound exactly like one particular speaker. The goal is to be clear and understandable while still embracing your own unique voice.
Speaking of unique voices, have you noticed how our own voices have evolved over time?
Interesting.
As we've immersed ourselves in different languages and cultures.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It's like our voices become a tapestry, woven with threads of all the languages we've encountered.
Wow, I love that.
And that's what makes language learning so enriching. It's not just about acquiring new words. It's about expanding our understanding of the world. And of ourselves.
I love that image. Our voices as linguistic tapestries, reflecting our unique journeys and experiences. And just like tapestries, they continue to evolve and grow as we learn and explore.
So to our listener out there, as you continue on your vocabulary adventure, don't be afraid to embrace the journey, the challenges, and the triumphs. Allow yourself to be transformed by the power of language.
Remember, every new word you learn is a step toward fluency.
It is.
A brushstroke on your linguistic canvas.
Ooh, another one.
A thread in your ever-evolving tapestry of voices.
This deep dive has taken us on quite a journey so far.
It has.
From practical tips to thought-provoking questions to a celebration of the transformative power of language.
And we're not done yet. Stay tuned for the final part of our deep dive.
Where
we'll explore even more insights from the mini lesson and leave you with some final words of wisdom to carry with you on your vocabulary quest. Welcome back to our deep dive into learning English words daily. I feel like we've already covered so much ground. From those like practical sticky note strategies to the idea of our voices as like ever-evolving tapestries.
I love that metaphor.
Woven with the threads of different languages.
It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It has.
And yet there's still so much to explore.
Right.
What I love about this mini lesson is that it just packs in so much valuable information, but it still feels manageable, you know?
Right. It's like they distilled all the best advice on vocabulary learning into like this potent shot of knowledge.
It is.
And speaking of potency,
let's
revisit that concept of consistency, which the mini lesson really emphasizes.
Yes, consistency. The secret ingredient to success in pretty much any endeavor, language learning included.
For sure.
It's so tempting to want to cram a ton of new words all at once, but that often leads to like overwhelm and frustration.
It's like trying to eat a whole birthday cake in one sitting. You might get a sugar rush initially, but you'll probably end up with a stomach ache and no real enjoyment of the cake itself.
That's such a good analogy. It's much better to savor those slices of vocabulary knowledge one at a time, allowing them to digest and become part of your, long-term linguistic repertoire.
I like that. Yeah, so it's not about intensity.
Right.
It's more about creating a sustainable habit.
Exactly.
And that's where those 20-minute daily chunks that the mini lesson advocates for really shine.
Yeah.
It feels doable, even on the busiest of days.
It does.
Exactly. It's about weaving vocabulary learning into the fabric of your life, making it as routine as like brushing your teeth or checking your email.
I like that.
And that's where those practical activities we've been discussing come into play. You know, they make it fun and engaging, almost like a game.
Totally.
From those playful sticky notes to those spontaneous self-talk moments, it's about finding what clicks for you.
Yeah.
What keeps those vocabulary gears turning.
And don't underestimate the power of simply noticing new words in the wild. Whether you're reading a news article or watching a movie or eavesdropping on a conversation. Ooh, sneaky.
Don't tell anyone I said that.
Your secret's safe with me.
Good.
But yeah, be on the lookout for those unfamiliar words.
It's like turning the world into your own personal vocabulary playground.
I love that.
And once you've spotted a new word, don't just let it fly by.
Yeah.
Take a moment to jot it down, look it up, try to use it in a sentence.
Okay.
The more you interact with those words, the more likely they are to stick.
It's like making a new friend.
Right.
The more you get to know them, the more they become a part of your life.
It's interesting how we often approach language learning with this sense of urgency. Like we need to conquer it as quickly as possible.
Right.
But what if we shifted our perspective a little bit?
Okay.
And viewed it as an ongoing journey.
Yeah.
A lifelong exploration of the beauty and complexity of language.
That's such a powerful reframing.
It is, right.
It takes the pressure off.
And allows us to just embrace the process. The ups and downs, the aha moments,
right,
and the times when we stumble.
And through it all, we're learning, we're growing, we're expanding our horizons. It's like we're adding new colors to our linguistic palette, new instruments to our symphony of communication.
I love that imagery.
Yeah.
It reminds us that language learning is not just about practicality.
Right.
It's about creativity, expression, connection.
And those are things worth savoring, don't you think?
Absolutely. So, to our listener out there, as you continue on your vocabulary quest, remember to enjoy the ride, embrace the challenges, celebrate the victories,
and never stop exploring the wonders of language.
And remember, every new word you learn is a gift.
It is.
A treasure that will enrich your life in countless ways.
This deep dive has been such a rewarding experience, exploring all these practical strategies and insightful tips for learning English words daily.
It has.
It's been a pleasure sharing this journey with you.
And with you, our wonderful listener. We hope you've gleaned some valuable insights from this deep dive and feel inspired to embark on your own vocabulary adventure.
Until next time, happy learning.
And may your vocabulary be ever expanding. Okay, picture this. You've just gotten off the plane in London. You're jet-lagged, but that smell of coffee is calling your name.
Oh, yeah.
You wander into this cute little cafe, but you want to order like a local, not just another tourist, with a phrase book.
Right.
So that's where this deep dive comes in.
Yeah.
We've got all these articles and tips about mastering coffee shop interactions in English.
It really is amazing how these small little chats can really open up a whole new world when you're learning a language.
Absolutely.
It's not even just about the coffee, it's about connecting with the culture and feeling more confident.
So let's get into it. We have articles on vocab regional slang, even a study on the psychology of ordering. Where do we even begin?
Well, we got to start with a strong foundation, right?
Yeah.
And, we tend to forget that even basic vocabulary can tell us a lot about a culture.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like take the flat white, for example.
I've seen that on menus. But I'm always a little afraid to ask what it is.
Yeah, so basically it's a double shot of espresso with just a tiny bit of steamed milk on top. Okay.
It's super popular in Australia and New Zealand. And, that tells us a lot about their coffee culture, right? They're all about that strong espresso flavor, and there's this huge emphasis on the texture of that microphone.
So it's not just about knowing the words, it's about understanding where they come from.
Right.
That makes sense.
Like, the difference between asking for a large coffee and realizing that at Starbucks, you got to order a venti.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
I've definitely been in situations where I've used the wrong word for sizes and I felt so awkward.
Right. It happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
But being aware of those little differences can help you blend in a little more.
For sure.
And while we're talking about variations, let's get into the world of modifiers.
Oh, man. Those can be tricky. I remember once I tried to order a decaf soy latte in New York.
Oh.
It was so busy and loud, and I ended up with something totally different.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it was a mess. That's why knowing how to use those modifiers confidently is so important. It's not even just about getting your order right, it's about feeling good expressing what you want. Imagine you're in a London coffee shop, it's freezing outside, and you're craving a soy latte extra hot. How would you order that?
Let's see, could I please have a soy latte extra hot?
Nailed it. You sound like you've been living in London for years.
Why try?
And don't be afraid to ask questions if you're not sure about something.
Right, like if I see a drink on the menu and I have no idea what it is, I can just ask.
Exactly. You could say, what's in a cortado?
Yeah.
And chatting with the barista helps you get your order right, but it also adds a little local flavor to the whole experience.
Okay, so we've covered the basics of vocab and modifiers. What about those phrases that really make you sound like you belong?
Oh, there are some classics that can make things go a lot smoother. Could I please have? It's always a polite and safe bet.
I tend to use it feels a bit more direct to me.
Yeah, and that's great too. It shows confidence.
Okay, cool.
So you've got your base, and then you add those modifiers on top.
Like building blocks.
Exactly. And the more you practice saying these phrases out loud, the easier it gets.
Okay, so we've got the vocab, the key phrases down. Now, how do we actually connect with the coffee shop culture, not just order and leave?
That's where the magic of small talk comes in.
I don't know. Small talk can feel a little superficial sometimes.
Yeah, I get that. But small talk serves a different purpose depending on where you are in the world. In a lot of English-speaking cultures, it's all about showing politeness, easing into a conversation.
So it's more about the social interaction than the topic itself.
Right. And you'd be surprised how much you can learn about a culture just by paying attention to the way people do small talk.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like in some cultures, talking about the weather might seem boring, but in the UK, it's practically a national sport.
Okay, so if I'm in a London coffee shop and it's raining cats and dogs outside, I could say something like, wow, this weather is wild.
Exactly. And they might say, oh, tell me about it. Typical British weather, though. See, you've just started a whole conversation.
Right.
It's amazing how a little comment like that can lead to so much. And it's not just about talking to strangers. You can use small talk with the barista, too. Just a simple, how's your day going, can make things feel more personal.
I like that. It feels more human.
Exactly. It's all about building those little connections, even if they're brief.
Right. So we've got the vocabulary, the ordering phrases, and now the art of small talk. What else do we need to know to really master the coffee shop scene?
Well, there's this whole other layer of communication that's happening beyond the words we speak.
You mean like the unspoken rules, the etiquette?
Exactly. Those unspoken rules can be tough to figure out, especially in a new culture.
Yeah, for sure. Like personal space, I've definitely been in some crowded coffee shops where I felt like I was on top of the person next to me.
Oh yeah, personal space is a big one, and it's different everywhere. But in a lot of English-speaking countries, it's polite to give people some breathing room.
So if I'm at a table, I shouldn't spread out all my stuff like I own the place.
Good rule of thumb. And if you're waiting in line, try not to crowd the person in front of you.
Right. It's all about being considerate, even when it's busy.
Exactly. What about noise level? I've noticed some coffee shops are super loud and others are really quiet.
Yeah, how do you know what the vibe is? I don't want to be that person yelling on my phone in a silent cafe.
It's all about looking around, you know? Pay attention to how loud people are talking and adjust your volume accordingly.
And if I need to take a call, I should probably step outside.
Right. Just be respectful of everyone around you. Now, speaking of sharing space, let's talk about working or studying in a coffee shop.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. Coffee shops are like a second office for a lot of people.
Totally. But there are definitely some unspoken rules there.
Like, if you're going to be there for a while, you should probably buy more than just one coffee.
Right. You don't want to hog a table all day and only spend a couple of dollars.
Makes sense. What about laptops and stuff?
Yeah, be mindful of the volume on your devices. You know, nobody wants to hear your music or your keyboard clicking away.
And if it's crowded, try to keep your stuff contained.
Exactly. Sharing is caring. Actually, one of our sources mentions a study about how noise affects productivity.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yeah, so basically they found that certain kinds of noise, like loud conversations or sudden sounds, can be super distracting.
Okay.
But consistent, quiet background noise, like the coffee machine or soft music, can actually help people focus.
That's probably why you get so much work done in coffee shops.
Right. It's that perfect balance.
Okay, so we've talked about the spoken and the unspoken rules of coffee shop interactions, from how to order to cultural nuances and even workspace etiquette. But I'm curious, how does this all go beyond just getting a cup of coffee? How does it connect to language learning and feeling more comfortable in a new culture?
That's a great question. And honestly, it's something we forget about a lot. We get so focused on learning vocab and grammar that we forget why we're doing it in the first place. Language is about connecting with people and experiencing the world in a different way.
You know, you're right. I've had times where I've messed up words or pronounced things wrong, but the person I was talking to was so nice about it. It wasn't about being perfect. It was about the connection.
Exactly. Those are the moments that make language learning come alive. You realize it's about the human interaction, the shared moments, not just about getting the words right.
So how do we encourage our listeners to really embrace those moments, to get out of their comfort zone and really experience the culture?
I think it starts with a change in mindset. Instead of seeing language learning as something you have to do, see it as an adventure.
I love that.
A way to explore new places, connect with different people.
It's rating in your textbook for a plane ticket.
Exactly. And coffee shops are the perfect place to start these adventures.
Yeah.
They're like these little mini cultures where you can observe, interact, and practice your language skills in a safe space.
So don't just grab your coffee and go.
Ew.
Take a moment to really be there.
Right. Listen to the conversations happening around you. Notice how people are interacting.
Yeah, it's like a mini ethnography project.
Exactly. And if you feel up to it, don't be afraid to start a conversation with someone.
Yeah.
It could be the barista, someone at another table, even the person in line behind you.
You never know what you might learn.
And even if it's just a quick chat, it's still a chance to practice your skills and connect with someone from a different background.
It's amazing how these little interactions can be so meaningful.
Right. Like each conversation is a window into another world.
So we've talked about the spoken and unspoken rules of coffee shop interactions, the importance of small talk, and how these everyday encounters can help us understand language and culture better. What else can we give our listeners to help them navigate all this with confidence?
I think it's important to address the fear of making mistakes. You know, a lot of people are afraid to speak up because they think they'll say the wrong thing.
Oh yeah, I've definitely been there. I totally chickened out of speaking because I was scared of messing up.
It happens. But remember, making mistakes is part of learning.
Like learning to ride a bike. You're going to fall a few times before you get it.
Exactly. Same goes for language. Embrace those awkward moments. Those times when you feel like you're fumbling over your words. It's all part of the journey.
And a lot of times people are more understanding than we think.
Totally. Most people appreciate when you try to speak their language. They're not going to focus on every little grammar mistake.
So instead of getting down on yourself for making mistakes, see them as opportunities to learn and grow.
Exactly. Each mistake is a chance to get better and build your confidence.
And sometimes those mistakes lead to the best stories.
Absolutely. Some of my favorite language learning memories are those times when I totally messed up or misunderstood something. They're the stories that make you laugh and teach you something new about the culture.
So to everyone listening, embrace the mistakes, laugh at the awkward moments, and celebrate the small wins.
Because the journey of language learning is just as important as the destination. And hey, you might even discover a hidden talent for comedy along the way.
Speaking of discoveries, one of our sources talks about the psychological benefits of getting out of your comfort zone.
That sounds interesting. Tell me more.
So the article says that challenging yourself to do things that make you a little uncomfortable can actually make you more confident and resilient.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like working out a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
Exactly. And when you apply that to language learning, it means that the more you push yourself to speak, to start conversations, to try new things, the more confident you become.
And that confidence can spread to other parts of your life, too.
It's a ripple effect.
Exactly.
It's amazing how something as simple as ordering a coffee can be so powerful.
Really is. Those little interactions can change the way we see ourselves and the way we connect with the world.
So next time you're in a coffee shop, remember you're not just getting a drink, you're starting an adventure.
Embrace the unknown, challenge yourself, and enjoy the experience. You might be surprised by what you find.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
From basic vocabulary and cultural differences to the art of small talk and the power of making mistakes.
It's been a good one.
I'm feeling pretty energized now, ready to conquer any coffee shop in the world.
That's the spirit.
Yeah.
And remember, we've just scratched the surface here.
Yeah.
There's so much more to explore, to learn, and to experience.
So to everyone listening, keep practicing, keep trying new things, and keep those coffee cups full.
Yes.
Because the world is out there waiting to be discovered, one conversation at a time.
Beautifully said.
And maybe with a delicious latte in hand.
Always. It's funny, because there's this whole other level of communication happening in coffee shops.
Oh, yeah.
It goes beyond just the words.
You mean like the unspoken rules, all that etiquette stuff?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And those unspoken rules can be a little tricky to navigate, especially in a new culture.
Well, one that comes to mind is personal space.
Yeah.
I've been in those packed coffee shops where you're practically sitting on a stranger's lap.
Oh, yeah. Personal space is a big one for sure. It's different everywhere. But in a lot of English-speaking countries, people like to have a bit of breathing room.
So if I'm at a table, I shouldn't be spreading out all my stuff like I own the place.
Exactly. And if you're waiting in line, don't be breathing down someone's neck. Just be mindful of the person in front of you.
Right. It's about being considerate of others.
Yeah.
Even when it's super busy.
Absolutely. What about noise level? Have you noticed how some coffee shops are really loud and others are like super quiet?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's tricky sometimes. You don't want to be that person talking really loudly on their phone when everyone else is whispering.
Right. It's all about reading the room, observe the vibe and adjust accordingly.
So if people are whispering, I should keep my voice down too.
Exactly. And if there's a lot of chatter, then you can relax a bit more.
And if I need to take a phone call, I should probably step outside or find a quieter spot.
Exactly. Just be mindful of the shared space and the people around you. Now, speaking of shared space, let's talk about working or studying in a coffee shop.
Oh, this is a big one. It seems like coffee shops have become like a second office for a lot of people these days.
They really have, but there are definitely some etiquette rules to keep in mind.
Like if you're planning to camp out there for a while, you should probably buy more than just a single coffee.
Yeah, it's kind of a courtesy,
Right.
You don't want to take up a table for hours and only spend a couple of dollars.
Right. What about using laptops and stuff?
Be mindful of the volume on your devices. No one wants to hear your music blasting or your keyboard clicking nonstop.
And if it's crowded, try to be space conscious. Don't spread out all your belongings and take up the whole table.
Exactly. It's all about being considerate and sharing the space. Actually, one of our sources mentions a study about the impact of noise on productivity.
Oh, really? Tell me more.
Yeah, so apparently certain types of noise, like really loud conversations or sudden bursts of sound, can be super distracting.
Okay.
But consistent, low-level background noise, like the sound of the coffee machine or soft music, can actually help people focus and be more creative.
That makes sense. I feel like I get some of my best work done in busy coffee shops.
Right, it's that perfect balance of energy and ambient noise.
So we've covered the spoken rules and the unspoken rules of coffee shop interactions, from ordering phrases to cultural nuances and even workspace etiquette. But I'm curious, how does this all go beyond just getting a coffee? How does it connect to the bigger picture of language learning and cultural immersion?
That's a great question. And it's something we often overlook. We get so caught up in memorizing vocabulary and grammar rules that we forget the real reason we're learning a language.
What do you mean?
It's about connecting with people and experiencing the world in a new way.
Yeah, I've definitely had those moments where I've stumbled over words or mispronounced things, but the person I was talking to was so patient and understanding. And in those moments, it wasn't about being perfect, it was about the connection.
Exactly. Those are the moments that make language learning come alive. It's not just about the words, it's about the human interaction, the shared laughter, the cultural exchange.
So how can we encourage our listeners to embrace those moments, to step out of their comfort zones and really dive into the cultural experience?
I think it starts with a shift in mindset. Instead of seeing language learning as a chore or a test to pass, see it as an adventure.
I love that.
A way to explore new worlds, connect with different people, expand your horizons.
Like trading in your textbook for a passport.
Exactly. And coffee shops can be the perfect starting point for those adventures. They're like these microcosms of culture where you can observe, interact, and practice your language skills in a safe and welcoming environment.
So instead of just grabbing a coffee to go take a moment to really be there.
Right. Listen to the conversations happening around you. Notice those subtle cues of body language and social interaction.
It's like turning your coffee break into a little research project.
Exactly. And if you feel comfortable, don't be afraid to strike up a conversation with someone.
Yeah.
It could be the barista, someone at another table, or even the person standing in line behind you.
You never know what interesting stories you might hear or what you might learn.
And even if it's just a quick chat, it's still a valuable opportunity to practice your language skills and connect with someone from a different culture.
It's amazing how these seemingly insignificant interactions can actually be so enriching.
It's like each conversation is a window into another world.
So we've talked about the spoken and unspoken rules of coffee shop interactions, the importance of small talk, and how these everyday encounters can deepen our understanding of language and culture.
Yeah.
What else can we offer our listeners to help them navigate this world with confidence?
It's funny. We always talk about fluency, like it's this big goal, like reaching the top of a mountain.
Yeah.
But maybe it's more about enjoying the climb itself.
I think you're absolutely right. It's
Yeah.
about those little moments of connection,
Yeah.
Those times when you finally get that pronunciation right, or when you have your first real conversation with someone.
It's those moments that make all the hard work worth it. I remember when I was learning Spanish, I was so focused on all the grammar rules and verb tenses.
Right. That I forgot to just enjoy speaking the language.
It's easy to get caught up in the technical stuff, especially when you're first starting out, but we got to remember that language is really all about communication and connecting with people.
I had this experience once in this tiny little cafe in Barcelona.
Oh, yeah?
I was trying to order a café con leche, and I totally butchered the pronunciation.
I bet the barista still knew what you meant, though.
Oh, they did. And they even gave me this little smile and said, "Mi bien." It was such a small thing, but it made me feel so good.
It's those little gestures that make all the difference. They remind us that we're all human. We all make mistakes, and we're all just trying our best.
It's like this universal language of kindness that goes beyond any grammar mistakes. It's that feeling of, hey, we're both putting in the effort, and that's what matters.
Exactly. And those moments often lead to the most genuine connections.
It makes me think about all the times I've been afraid to speak up in a new language. I've been so worried about sounding silly. But then I remember those encouraging smiles, those patient people, and it gives me the courage to try again.
It really is like building a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And that goes for confidence, too. Each time you push yourself to speak, to try something new, you're building that confidence muscle.
And those small wins, they add up over time.
They do.
And you start to feel more self-assured, not just in language learning, but in other areas of your life, too.
Absolutely. It's like this ripple effect. You realize you can handle new and unfamiliar situations. It's about embracing the unknown and trusting yourself to figure it out.
And what better place to practice those skills than in a coffee shop, right?
Seriously.
Surrounded by all that energy, all those conversations.
It's the perfect environment to observe, to experiment, to just enjoy the process of learning and growing.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into coffee shop confidence, let's leave our listeners with one final thought.
Okay.
It's not about speaking perfectly. It's about enjoying the journey. It's about those small moments of connection, those awkward stumbles, those unexpected discoveries. It's about trying new things and being okay with being a beginner again.
Well said.
And who knows? You might just find that the best part of the whole journey is the coffee itself.
To stronger coffee and even stronger conversations.
Cheers to that. And to all our listeners out there, keep practicing, keep exploring, and keep those coffee cups full, because the world is waiting to be discovered one conversation at a time.
Couldn't have said it better myself.